all very excited. I know Rena is. I know I am. If you're joining us
Wait, that's not what she was just saying.
today
Hey,
is
don't
the
out
day,
me.
right? No, today is the day we talk about all the things that are happening in marketing, and there's always so much, right? So, and Greg was lying right there, just so you know. So, Greg, what's been
Hello, everybody.
happening? What's been happening in the world of websites?
Well, websites are being built at a furious pace.
So
2021 was a big year for websites and e-commerce. I'm so busy. I am sort of off the pulse of a lot of what's going on, but there's not a ton of WordPress news. They released a maintenance update a couple weeks ago. Everybody probably got that
so
update recently.
is that like a 5.1.1 or something?
It was a point two,
Okay,
point X point two.
are we waiting? So when we get that update in WordPress, are we waiting until it's point 3 to update to point 2? Is it's not a big update?
Nope,
Nope.
no, it's just a maintenance release. It's not a full release to a new version. So it's typically the new versions that I would suggest wait till you get that point one or point two, because everybody typically updates right away and realizes there's a couple of things to tweak.
Right? Yeah, that's always the smartest way to go. I had heard from a client last week. They updated a plugin, it crashed their whole website or something. So, gotta like the sound effect.
Yeah, there is because I am an iThemes security user for most of the sites that I manage. If they subscribe to my updates, they will get Backup Buddy and iThemes Security. And iThemes Security has a really good newsletter that goes out, I think it's weekly, with compromised plugins and the level of severity of the issue, low, medium, high, and like update immediately type of a thing. So I think you could probably subscribe to that, just even if you don't use it, because it might be worthwhile, because it doesn't exclude any plugins. It's not like specifically theirs. It's all plugins and themes,
Hmm.
and that type of thing. So you can get firsthand knowledge like right away from those updates saying what had vulnerabilities and things like that.
Oh, okay, okay. If you are joining us, because I see you out there, pop a hello in there and let us know if we're not updating you on all the news that you know, because I know you might know something that we don't know. Websites are ever endingly, well, the thing you need to have nowadays, right? More than ever. So this is what we're seeing. And Phelan, Shopify, they didn't make as much money in this quarter, did they?
No, they were slightly down from expectations. I mean overall, but they're flying pretty high overall, so they had big shoes to fill. So that's to be understood. We also, just going off of some of the website stuff in hosting, we did see that if anyone was on SiteGround, it looks like there was a big issue with SiteGround hosting, and apparently it had something to do with Amazon Web Services and Google Crawler did not play well together. And so all of a sudden, people were not getting found on Google. Apparently, they've resolved the issue, but it's still a little scary for anyone who is hosting on SiteGround or anyone with AWS, that there could be this issue that the hosting, it's a sub program of it called Global Accelerator Program. And apparently, they're working on fixing it. Even more, Google having issues with dropping websites, I guess, on the 15th. They also, their Google cloud computing systems dropped Spotify,
Oh
Apple, some of their own
no,
Google
I
products.
didn't
Not as
hear
bad as the
that.
Facebook one,
How did I miss that?
but,
Didn't didn't YouTube go down too? I think YouTube went down.
It might have
Oh,
gone down some of the services. It was a partial shutdown, so it looked like a lot of Europe.
What was it?
Uh,
Discord, Spotify,
yeah,
Twitter, SiteGround. You said. I got the notes.
yeah. They Nest,
Oh,
Spotify, Discord. Those.
Jessica's here. Hi. Just sorry, cut you off. Phelan Jessica is struggling with some Facebook Live stuff, I know, and I just saw you do some YouTube stuff, so I was checking you out over there. Anyway, so things are down, but we have a lot. So we have a lot of news in the search world. But before I get to that, Rena, is there anything of note? Because Facebook's not doing anything lately.
well, we talked a few months ago, I think it was a few months ago, about how Insights was changing, and it looks like Facebook is coming out with its own reporting system. So I'm not sure if that's a reporting system that kind of is organized like Google Analytics, but it's set a way around the Apple changes. And I don't know exactly what it means, if it's going to be a separate app from Insights, or if it's replacing Insights, or if it's just for Facebook and Instagram, or if it's going to include other things. I have no idea on the details, but I'll figure that out and get back to you shortly. One of the funny things that I thought was pretty interesting, from a humorous point of view, is that Snapchat, one of their shareholders, is has launched a lawsuit against Apple's new privacy policy, because I guess their shares dropped quite a bit. What was it? Dropped. How much did it drop? I forgot. Like something like 25% or something quite large. So there's the lawsuit. So it'll be interesting to see how that lawsuit plays out, because it could either be ridiculous, but generally lawyers don't take ridiculous lawsuits to court,
Mm,
um, or it could be the beginning of something. I don't know
right.
what.
Do we
Um,
consider this kind of like a censorship type of a thing almost?
I'm
If
not sure
companies,
what the argument is. I have no idea what the argument is, but that it'll be fun to see how that plays out. But that, I don't know. It could be under censorship, because that sounds like a very American thing to do.
yeah,
Well, I
So
think that there's been some precedents after the big argument between Epic and Apple about their app
uh,
store and how much control because of monopolization, and that they're changing. It's kind of some trust concerns. So monopoly, duopoly kind of powers.
right.
Which is definitely one that they've been sued before, and they settled out of court because they didn't want to set a precedent. But now there's blood in the water, so I'm going to guess that a lot of companies who feel they've been wronged are probably going to be out for
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
yeah, probably.
The
And
big
then Apple, more Apple stuff. They've been buying Google ads for their apps. So that's pretty interesting.
interesting.
And
Who doesn't
um,
buy Google ads nowadays? I mean, come on,
well, that's the thing, really. I mean, yes, I don't know.
right?
Well, I've got some clients who don't, but other than that, but
Coach,
yeah, it seems like an interesting thing to do. So they're sort of pushing their apps on Google Ads, and yeah, and I think that's pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens with that.
I
It was done sort of under the radar.
I see Google Facebook ads. Ooh,
Yes.
feedback. Why is there feedback?
Yeah.
Well, and also Google is also being, and Facebook are both being sued about buying ads on each other's platforms. There's been also some collusion on theirs, which is why websites run slower, is because they're allowed to collude in order to get the best price on some ads. And that's also in the court system as well, that
All
just
right.
came through this month.
A lot of weird
Uh,
word things, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of it bubbling up, where especially the one with Facebook and Google got found out a year ago. The Bernanke Project is what it was called, named after the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and it's definitely yeah, I don't know why they named it that, but they decided to. But it is about them colluding to get the best price on ads on each other's platforms.
I do
Yeah.
like the word
Yeah.
looting, but it's probably
It's
not good for the humans out there trying to market because like you're not supposed to do that.
No.
No,
Right?
no. They're
Colluding
supposed
is
to
not
be
good.
playing fairly, and they're supposed to be
Fair.
oppositional in order for everyone to get
Yeah.
the best price. That's how it's supposed to work.
Well,
Yeah.
So
I
Isn't
think,
it interesting though that the companies that want free market and less regulations are the ones that actually do not actually succumb to free market,
well,
and
the
it's
funny thing is,
because they're
at the
working around it.
right at the newspaper, when there were political ads, political people had to pay the top price because there was no, you weren't allowed to give any variation because you weren't allowed to show like favoritism.
Favoritism, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
really
that's
interesting.
right.
Mona's here. Hey, Mona, and Jessica. Jessica's saying, she's had. This is a really good point. She's had some Facebook Live issues for over a month now. That's terrible. And I mean, what if your whole, as a marketer, what if everyone you talk to is just on Facebook? You're
Well, this is a thing. I have a client who had their business manager completely revoked. And it's like we got to a point where I'm totally stuck because I don't want to run ads on my business manager for my clients because that puts my business manager in jeopardy if we get in trouble for, you know, doing anything weird, which is weird because we ran the same ads for a number of weeks, like many weeks, like at least 5 weeks, and then we got in trouble for that ad. So it was clearly some weird glitch because I cannot see any terms of services that we had um, infringed upon, and she didn't get a second chance or a warning or the ability for anything. So that kind of messes up her entire marketing.
Can you shut down that account and just open a new one, or no?
No, you're allowed two business managers attached to one profile, and she already has a business manager for her second business. So it's a problem. It's a big problem. So because there is no recourse, there's no second chance, there's no like, even if you hire a professional so that um, 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 you avoid infringing on any of the terms of services, you don't get a second chance. You just don't. And
That's
it's weird. There's no way around it. I have spent so many hours on support trying to, get this problem. Some problems we can fix, like if we can point that the problem was caused by another agency or another admin person, then we can fix it. But in this particular case, there was no workaround for us.
interesting. That seems,
Yeah,
what, I hear that all the time. So, as a marketer, being a Facebook ads person, one of the things you have to do is account for the fact that you might be on the phone for 5 hours.
I know. It's
Yeah.
such a drag. So I usually sit on support. It's chat really with Facebook. So there's some times that I'm on there for an hour. It usually takes an hour for one question because of the way that their support works on scripts. It takes an hour for them to get to the point where they even understand your issue. It's so frustrating. It never used to be like that. It used to be very, very good. Now it drives me nuts. So I generally do it while I'm doing something else. I'll be on the chat with support so that I can actually not send all those costs back to my client.
Yeah, marketing's
All
frustrating.
right. So
This is the frustrating
Jessica,
part.
but I need to. So Jessica, have you actually organized? Have you tried chatting with support about your live issue?
Yeah, that's so hard. But that is not just what
All
we're talking
right.
about today. So,
Yeah. No,
Rena and
it's true.
Jessica, you two should
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah. We should connect.
Definitely. And well, I want to talk about search stuff because the social stuff seems slightly infuriating. But I mean, I don't know. I mostly pay attention to Facebook group stuff because that's
Mhm.
what we do.
Yeah.
And Jessica says she can't find the chat she used for support. Oh,
Oh,
I see a bond created.
send me a DM, Jessica. We'll get that sorted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And fail it. Search. Like there.
Yeah.
Oh my god! As of yesterday, lots of changes. So you guys don't know this yet because I didn't have a chance to update you. But do you remember last month when I think it was last month? Phelan, correct me if I'm wrong. When Google all of a sudden started changing titles on people in the
Oh
search
yeah.
engine
We
results
talked
page.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We
So
noticed it had moved from just title, some from meta descriptions, which we always kind of knew about, to also including titles, which then people were all kind of up in arms about, of like, why are they doing this part?
right, it was so interestingly enough, they published that they updated because so many people got up in arms because we work really hard on titles, and for them to change it in the search engine results pages, well, that's upsetting. So uh, John Mueller apologized and said sorry, but he didn't say sorry, we've stopped doing that. He said sorry, we've updated the algorithm, so we're doing it better. And so but in what he said, and I'll share the link later, there was a big description, and in the description there were all these links to all these different things, and you can actually read about how to make sure your title is being used in the search engine results pages in your snippet versus the one they choose for you. And same as your meta, I mean, it was quite geeky and maybe a little textbooky dry, but pretty informative. So I thought I got all excited about that. We have some lovely people joining us. What a great group of brains to pick. Yes, yes. I want a new phrase for the brains to pick. I say bend your ear, but I don't think it really means the same thing, right? And upsetting to put it mildly, yes. Okay, so the other thing, and Phelan, do you want to talk about this? It was the Google My Business.
Yeah, so there's a big change that's happened with Google My Business, where we used to go to business.google.com, and they had been hinting at it for the last 3-4 months. They had this new section that had just popped up saying you can now do everything that you can in Google My Business in the search results. So if you are in control of this listing, you can actually do all your posting, you can update your info, you can add all this additional information. And so they have been pushing more and more to have it in the search, right on the search engine results page. So you can look for your business and edit stuff, add posts. And so now they've made an official declaration that they're going to be moving Google My Business to some other completely innocuous name.
It's like Google something manager, Google profile.
No, it's Google business profile. That's what it is.
Profile manager.
Yeah. No, the manager is an entirely different thing, which is they're still technically for anyone who's an agency like us who takes control of multiple Google My Business accounts and needs to navigate around.
Yeah,
they're going to create something called Google Business Manager, which scares me because it sounds a lot like Facebook Business Manager, which is like I'm already having like flop sweat from that, just thinking about like having to deal with anything emulated off of that platform. But
warnings.
Yeah, my guess is that it's going to look for anyone that's in dealing with multiple locations. I assume it's going to be similar to what it exists now, and then they're just hoping to have everyone do everything more on the search engine results page themselves. That's my assumption for how they do it.
That is a good assumption. Laura, I know you're here. Laura is saying lame sauce. I am ad-libbing. Lame sauce that her face isn't showing up. And I don't know what. I think you maybe, I don't know, have to be, maybe you're following on our Facebook business page. I got to figure that out. So I'm sorry I can't see your face showing your comments, but I know it's you. And there's a sideline. Now we can go back to the really.
Oh, it's on there. She is on our business page versus the group, I think is what is going on. So we'll have to look into that more.
I'm seeing her in the group. So this is something we struggle up against. We will fix it. We're using something called Restream.io. We might be changing it, but it's pretty interesting. So do you guys have any news that you want to share about social besides being cut off from doing lives?
Well, there was one other part that was big news for the search that I wanted to get to before we jumped over to that, which was that there was an announcement by Martin Platz, who does a lot of the technical SEO side of it.
Like the young guy, the young John Mueller.
Yeah, except he's German instead of Swiss. That's the other big difference is that and so he's
and he looks completely different and he's like 30 years young. Yes.
Yeah. He's and so but he also does more of John Mueller does more like pure SEO, whereas Martin does more of like JavaScript and SEO. So like how the technical coding component works with your SEO.
Mm.
And so they had made an official declaration that you shouldn't be optimizing for voice search. So they said keep on doing what you're doing for regular SEO, but optimizing for voice search is not something that they're looking at, and they don't recommend that you follow that path. They'll optimize it based on whatever you're doing, but it's not something at this time that they're fully supporting. So that's interesting that they've made an official declaration for that.
It is. And they also said, which I almost completely forgot, 2022 February, there's going to be an algorithm update. And the weirdest thing is, so we all know that they went to mobile first, right? You know, it's mobile first, mobile first. Oh my God, optimize for mobile first. Well, now it's different. Desktop will not be graded on mobile friendliness. So, but they
Oh.
will be graded on all the first paint stuff. So all that technical stuff, they're gonna.
Yeah.
So they're doing. So when you look at what they're saying, they basically say they're doing all the same things except for the last one, which was mobile friendliness on a desktop. So that's kind of big news in that it changes how we now that we can kind of have them separate, right? A little bit, I
I
think.
mean, it kind of makes sense because relevant results to a search shouldn't matter whether it's optimized for desktop or mobile. In my view, I wouldn't want to get different results or not as good results just because the page that has those best results, isn't as good for mobile.
But the
If those are the best results for my search, they should just be the best results.
But if they're not the best results because they're either they take too long to load or they're not friendly or they're not easy to navigate.
Yeah.
So technically they're not the best results on
Well,
the phone.
but what I think is that it's kind of a merging of the two, because ultimately, if you make your website run well on a phone, all the processes and all the best practices you did for that part is going to also make it mobile friendly, because the phone just has less computing power than a desktop. So ultimately, it's going to load faster, it's going to load better, and it's going to have a better user experience anyway. And so that they just don't need to, they could just use the all like the page speed insights to do a lot of that information about, hey, does the site load properly? Because a lot of it is still going to be, if you do it for mobile, you're pretty much doing it for desktop, and it's still going to load well, because that is still a huge ranking factor, is the speed.
Mm,
My whole point is that speed is not a factor in relevance of what
content.
I'm looking for. It's just a relevant thing for how the user experience would be.
Mm,
And I think there should be less focus on that and more on what I actually searched for.
interesting. Well,
Like,
you
I'm
use
not
a
searching for something that's fast or searching for something that's slow. I'm searching for information, and give me the best information.
now, and you use a Pixel if I'm correct, right? So you're using a Google phone.
Hmm.
So you get to search Discover, right? Which is different than desktop searching, which is very interesting because we don't get that unless we download Discover for iPhones, I
I
think.
mean, that could be, and I don't know if this is if they do this already, but if the search knows that you're searching from a mobile device, show um, better mobile results versus if it knows you're searching on a desktop, then show
Mm,
results that are best for desktop.
yeah, I think
But
Laura.
don't have an overall like, we're going to show these results because they're optimized for mobile, even though you might be on some other device.
Right. Well, Laura's saying she gets pretty and useless gaming sites when she's searching, and when she really wants real tips and tricks, and that's really interesting. I'm wondering what game you're playing. Speaking of games, I know this is quite a little sideline, but I just have to say. So you all know I'm a little neurotic about the Oculus thing. Well, I just found out that I think they're gonna have games like King's Quest. So if you don't, nobody knows what that is. Okay, it's really geeky, and it was like 40 years ago. It's gonna be so cool. Anyway, I'll just let's get back to marketing. I think we're all done, right? Yeah, that's it. Let's go. No. We got 6 minutes of opinions to share. So
There was one thing that we didn't share, it was Phelan mentioned about the Astra theme
Ooh.
had
Oh
some
yeah.
type of vulnerability, and I didn't mention it in my segment, but we should probably maybe elaborate on that if.
Yeah, I as well. Just like you, Greg. I don't really use the Astra theme. I know that they say that they have a million downloads or uploads. I don't know what their metric is, but yeah, they do have a lot that have been added. So it is something that if you are using the Astra theme, it looks like there is an issue with the block builder, the new one, and the new update. And it has to do with it creates like a cross scripting vulnerability, which is bad news. The
Mhm,
cross scripting is
mhm.
not good. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for updates and doing any searches for that. So definitely be aware that that's out there.
I think we have
I know it's a hugely popular theme. I just don't
Yeah.
really.
use it and don't
I've never
follow.
heard of it.
Well,
Oh, really?
WordPress does make up a third of the internet, so there's going to be a lot of plugins that, like, even if you're only a million downloads, like that's still like probably what a thousandth of what's out there. Like, there's
Yeah.
probably a lot of websites out there, so it's easy
Yeah.
to be big and yet still incredibly small in the scope of
And
Yeah.
how many people are in
that
WordPress.
everybody knows Theme Forest. Come on now.
Speaking
Stay
speaking of
away.
big,
Huh?
speaking of big numbers, like if you think about that your number that you threw out there, did you know that TikTok is scheduled to surpass 1.5 billion users by 2022?
Who did? Who did? What did?
TikTok?
TikTok.
I love TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah,
What?
TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's just looking way more attractive in terms of users and engagement and all of that stuff
It's
compared to any other platform that I'm dealing with for such a less cost.
well.
Yeah.
I think it's got its place. I definitely think it's got its place.
Mm,
But I think it leads will help lead to other places. A lot of the time in TikTok, people
yeah,
send from TikTok to Instagram. Looks like the big
that's
trend.
right.
Um, actually,
That's
hold on.
right.
Laura is asking. We'll get back to that in a sec. Laura's asking Greg, Cadence WP got all their stuff fixed? Yes. Uh,
Yeah, I responded in the comments that, as far as I'm aware, they do not have any issues at the moment.
oh, that's
Yeah, they
Good.
Yeah, that it was specific to the Astra themes as far as I could see when I was doing some research about it.
mm,
Something talking about themes again and problems made me think about how there is sometimes a misconception on problems within themes when the actual problem is a WordPress problem. I come
Yeah.
across this all the time. Like people will say, "Oh, the a theme, can't do this," and so separating the separation of the what is wrong with the theme and what is wrong with WordPress is kind of jumbled because people will see things that aren't working and sometimes automatically assume it's the theme or the block builder package that they're using when in fact it's a WordPress or a WordPress block
Yeah.
issue.
interesting.
Yeah.
There's actually a really interesting case study that I just did
Ooh,
for two clients. We work in this particular company. They work with Aveda themes, and there were two clients. I'm not a big fan of Aveda, but it's very popular because it's easy for people to use themselves. Um, and we had two Aveda accounts. Websites were started at the same time, same kind of updates going on throughout. And then I was able to convince one of they started to rank really slow, like get slowed down. So, and they were about the same size site. And so one of the clients, I was able to get an audit done and then do the fixes. And one client I wasn't. So I did a nice little, and that was about a year ago. And so I did a nice little review on speed test on their sites. And the one that we did all the updates for a year ago, is ranking about 75 on that Google Speed Site tester, and then the other one is at 2. It's gone all the way down to 2.
So is that so? You just correct me if I'm wrong, just to clarify, because I was mostly listening. Um, so the taking the block builder off, like.
No, you can't take. Well, you can't really take the block builder off, because if you do that, then that ruins all of the rest of your posts. So what all we did was we did a quick little um, audit, and we figured out what we could do to optimize the things that were on the site from the clients actually uploading things like large files and minifying scripts and files. And I don't know what the technical stuff is, because Josh does that for me. So he did all of that. We got a better result on the one site right away, of course. But then a year later, that site has actually maintained its integrity fairly well. And then the other one had dropped down to 2. So that's a significant difference. Like, I've never
Yeah,
seen a site only rank 2.
it's more a case study of why you want to make sure you keep up
Yeah.
with
Yep.
your site and optimizing it or tweaking it for whatever the search engines require.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, and I'm sure that the organic search on the one site that's performing better, the organic search, and we've also switched up some of the social strategies that we've been doing with that client, and the organic search results have just increased significantly month after month since January.
You
It's
should
incredible.
you should wherever. I mean, this is just one of the weird things.
Yeah, no, tell me what I should
But
do. I want to know.
well, anytime we make like a significant change, or when we start working on a client's site doing SEO, we actually put a marker in Google Analytics for like an annotation
Oh,
for when we start
okay.
it, because we
Okay,
want
that's great.
to know the result. And it's so easy. If you want
That's
to
a
know how to
great
set,
tip.
ask
Yeah.
me in the comments, and we're out of time. Don't.
Usually I just take a screen cap of the results with the date.
Oh
But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not
This is way easier.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
So there's that. Next week, do we know what we're talking about next week?
Yes,
Rena,
we're talking about the meta whatever the heck. Metasphere.
metaverse.
Okay, so the one
Metaverse. Yeah, Metasphere. I want to call it Metasphere. Can I do that?
the metaverse.
Metaverse.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Once
So
it becomes the sphere, then you can call it the
And
metasphere.
we're trying to convince Phelan to come on because he seems to know the most of all four of us so far. So
Well, yeah.
I might be able to get my rubber arm twisted into it. Well, we'll see.
it's
We'll see. We'll see.
it's
What
gonna
happens.
happen.
let me just
I'm laying
mention.
my foot down. Everybody, tune in next Thursday for Phelan and the Metaverse.
Wait, well, no, tune in for these three to talk about the metaverse. And let me say, the only update we didn't do, and it's because there's a whole topic next week, was the Facebook update. If you haven't seen the video, or you didn't see Gary V cut off Mark Zuckerberg in every sentence, there's a couple of videos for you. But next week, Failing Greg and Rena will go deep into meta and what that means. And on that note, so glad you guys joined us. I'll try to figure out the face thing, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, Ron.
Bye.
Bye.